Hi, I'm Tamar. We'll be looking at Anna the prophetess. We'll be looking at the subjects of devotion and sacrifice. So who is Anna? There's only 3 verses in the Bible that talk about Anna the prophetess, but she's an amazing woman, so let's dive in and see what we can find out about her. A little bit of context. So after Jesus' birth, this is kind of the next big event, if you like, for Jesus. So as was custom in those days, 40 days after a baby was born, they would be brought to the temple for the purification. So Mary and Joseph bring Jesus to the temple for this occasion. And what would happen there is that they would bring a sacrifice, they would bring a lamb and 2 doves, and the priest would be there for them as well. So this is where the story starts. There's a man in the temple called Samuel. He's an older man, and I'd just like to read the part where he meets Jesus. It's in Luke 2, verse 25 to 32. Now there was a man in Jerusalem called Simeon, who was righteous and devout. He was waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was on him. It had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not die before he had seen the Lord's Messiah. Moved by the Spirit, he went into the temple courts. When the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him what was custom of the law that was required, Simeon took him into his arms and praised God, saying, "Sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you may now dismiss your servant in peace, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all nations, a light of revelation to the Gentiles, and a glory for your people of Israel." What I love the part here where it says that the Lord's Spirit was on him, and he was a man who knew the Lord's Spirit, who knew God, and he was just so extremely happy to finally see Jesus. That was his heart's desire. He had said to the Lord, "Lord, promise me that I may still see the Messiah with my eyes before I go." Even so that once he'd seen him, he said, "Lord, now I may depart." What a wonderful way to be able to have your ultimate dreams and desires fulfilled on earth, that the Lord had that for Simeon. So after this, we see Anna, who comes into the courts as well. So we're just going to take a little look at a video to see what goes on after this.
Die in peace. There was someone else in the temple that day, a woman named Anna. For many years, she had stayed at the temple day and night, worshiping God through fasting and prayer and talking to God through the Holy Spirit, like Simeon. The Bible doesn't tell us exactly how long she'd been there, but by this time, she was 84 years old. She knew God well, and, like Simeon, she had been waiting for the king God had promised. Sure enough, Anna came by just as Simeon was talking to Mary and Joseph. Immediately, she praised God. The king was finally here, just as God promised. When Simeon and Anna met Jesus, they were overcome with joy. The Bible tells us that faith is being sure of what we hope for. It is being sure of what we do not see. Simeon and Anna were sure that God had promised to send a rescuer. They were sure he was coming. And when they saw Jesus, they were sure the rescuer had arrived. All because they had faith that God keeps his promises.
So who was Anna? We know a few things about her. First of all, it says that she was married for 7 years, and afterwards she lived as a widow for the rest of her life. She was an older woman. She was someone who actually lived in the temple. So she didn't have a house far off, and she would visit the temple, but she would worship, she would pray, she would fast within the temple. People around her would know, I can go over to Anna because she will have some insight. She was known as the prophetess, so she would get insights from the Lord that were usually hidden for regular people, and they would come up to her and find solace in her. So she was really devoted to living close with the Lord. One thing it also says is that she was from the tribe of Asher. And in Deuteronomy, when you look up where Moses prophesies over the different tribes, he says about the tribe of Asher, where she's from, he says, I'll read it out, "Your strength will equal your days, the tribe of Asher. And that certainly was true for Anna. Her strength was still there, even in her older days, maybe even more so than when she was younger. And I'd imagine she was quite an eccentric woman, kind of small, walking around, talking to everybody. She knew everyone, but most of all, she was devoted to God. And she wanted to be as close to God as she could be on earth. So what can we learn from Anna? That age is just a number. Just as we learned last week, where Dave was talking to us about not to say, I am too young. The same way here we're looking at Anna, who is much older and much further in life, and there's no excuse for her to say, well, I've had my good days and now I've come to the end of them. That age has no relevance with the Lord. I think what's really struck me here is how important it is to have people in our lives that are older and mature. I love looking at people and hearing from them, how they're so in tune with the Lord, that they have lived their life with Him, that they have been through experiences and really have learned to be in sync with the Lord. And I think that we need spiritual mothers and fathers around us that we can look to and say, hey, the Lord is faithful. I can see how these people have lived with the Lord. How do you do that? What did you do when you encountered something difficult in your life? So what can we learn from this? The Lord doesn't look down on the fact you might be young, but the Lord also doesn't look down on the fact that you might be older than others. He sees us as equal, and we are all able to live our life to the fullest for Him. Number 2 is devotion. She had a routine. She lived in the temple, she fasted, she prayed, she did certain things for years and years, and there was a certain behavior that had become a habit in her life. And I think what we can learn from this is that it is important for us to do certain things that help and nourish our relationship with the Lord. May it be walking in nature, may it be taking out 10 minutes in the morning before you get up out of bed to just get in sync with the Lord. That these things of really being devoted to the Lord and showing that through our actions are very important. For me, it's an example of my mum. She has always had her cup of tea in the morning. It would be peppermint tea. After she woke up after breakfast, she'd sit down, have her Bible, have her journal, and she would just take that half an hour, whatever was going on. The whole house could be falling down, but she was having her quiet time with the Lord. And even for my kids who now go over, when it's 8 o'clock and they're like, oh, where's Oma? We know she's sitting on the couch and she's having her quiet time with the Lord. So much so that it has inspired Nina Ray to get a journal and write down things and read the Bible just like Oma does. And those are things that are important for us to be able to stay connected with the Lord, to be to set certain things aside and really say, no, the Lord is number one. Lastly, we can learn from Anna her sacrifice. She was a woman who sacrificed her life for others. She decided not to live for herself, but she decided to live for those who were in need, who had no hope, who may have had grievance in their life. She was like a big comforting mum in the temple where they could go to. And I imagine that that's how people viewed her. And that is also what we need. The world needs people that are full of hope, that are full of light, that have something to offer, because sometimes when you look around in the world, it isn't all that great. But I think what we can take away is that our life is not just for ourselves. We as Christians should have a heart of sacrifice, to want to put the other in front of us and not just look at our own needs. So let's pursue to be like Anna, whose desire it was to live in God's house. Let's so as well it be our desire to dwell in the house of the Lord for all our days, and to be so close with the Lord and live out of that, and that from that place we may shine into the world as beacons, as cities on a hill for a world that is searching for God.
Love with no reservation. You're not looking for perfection. There's no need in me pretending. I'll give you everything. I'll give you everything. You deserve my full attention. Nothing less than my devotion. Oh, speak to me and I will listen. I'll give you everything. I'll give you everything. Lift it up.